heart?
Absolutely. So omega-3s have this amazing ability to reduce inflammation throughout the body.
Okay.
And we know that chronic inflammation is a major culprit in the development of heart disease.
So they're tackling that inflammation at the source.
Precisely. And that's not all.
All right.
Omega-3s also help lower blood pressure, improve blood flow, and reduce the risk of dangerous blood clots.
Wow, it's like they're a multitasking superhero for our cardiovascular system.
I like that analogy. And the best part is that all these benefits come from something as simple as the foods we choose to eat.
It's amazing how powerful food can be.
It really is. Every meal is an opportunity to nourish our bodies and support our health.
So we've covered the heart health benefits of omega-3s.
Uh-huh.
What about their impact on brain health? I've heard they're good for our brains too.
You heard correctly, our brains are actually incredibly rich in fatty acids.
Okay.
And omega-3s play a crucial role in maintaining brain structure and function.
So it's not just about like preventing cognitive decline as we age.
Right.
It's about supporting optimal brain function throughout our lives.
Exactly. Omega-3s are involved in cell signaling, neurotransmitter production, and even protecting our brains from damage.
That's incredible to think that something we eat can have such a profound impact on our brains.
It's amazing.
And the research on omega-3s and brain health is constantly evolving.
Yeah, definitely.
There's growing evidence that they may help improve mood, memory, and even attention.
It's pretty exciting.
Wow, this is fascinating stuff. It seems like omega-3s are truly essential for like overall well-being.
They are incredibly important, but it's also crucial to approach them with a balanced perspective.
What do you mean?
So more isn't always better.
Oh, okay.
We need to be mindful of our overall intake of fats
Right,
and the balance of different types in our diet.
right. Back to that omega balancing act.
Exactly. And this brings us to the importance of choosing the right sources of omega-3s.
Okay, let's talk about those sources. We've mentioned fatty fish like salmon and mackerel, but are there other ways to get omega-3s in our diet?
Yes. So as we kind of touched upon before, some plant-based foods like flax seeds and chia seeds contain a type of omega-3 called ALA.
Right, ALA. Can you remind me how that differs from the omega-3s found in fish?
Sure. So ALA is a shorter chain omega-3,
Okay.
while the ones in fish, EPA and DHA, are longer chain.
Okay.
So ALA actually needs to be converted by the body into EPA and DHA.
And those are the ones directly linked to the heart and brain benefits we were just talking about.
That's right. Unfortunately, the conversion process from ALA to EPA and DHA isn't very efficient in humans.
Okay.
So it's important to include direct sources of EPA and DHA in our diet if we want to reap the full benefits.
So for most people, fatty fish is still the best way to go.
For optimal omega-3 intake, yes.
Okay.
But for those who don't eat fish,
Right.
whether for personal preferences or dietary restrictions, there are algae-based supplements that provide EPA and DHA directly.
It's good to know there are options out there for everyone.
Exactly. It's about finding what works best for you and your individual needs.
Right.
As we've been emphasizing throughout this whole deep dive.
Speaking of individual needs,
Yep.
you mentioned earlier that genetics can play a role in how our bodies handle fats. Can you tell me more about that?
Absolutely. This is where the field of nutrigenomics comes in.
Okay.
It's a fascinating area of research that explores how our genes influence our response to different nutrients,
Okay.
including fatty acids.
So you're saying that our genes can actually affect how we metabolize fats?
Precisely. And with the advancements in genetic testing, we can now get insights into our individual predispositions.
Oh, wow.
So, for example, you might discover that you're really efficient at converting ALA to EPA and DHA.
Which means someone like that could potentially get sufficient omega-3s from plant-based sources.
Exactly. Or you might learn that you have a genetic variant that makes you more sensitive to the inflammatory effects of certain omega-6s.
Okay.
This knowledge can empower you to make more informed choices about the types and amounts of fats you consume.
This is incredible. It's like having a personalized roadmap for navigating the world of fats.
It's pretty amazing. It's an exciting area of research, and I'm eager to see how it unfolds in the years to come.
Me too. It feels like we're on the cusp of a whole new era of personalized nutrition.
Yeah.
But even without genetic testing, there are still practical steps we can take today to improve our diets right.
Absolutely. It all starts with focusing on whole, unprocessed foods.
Things like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean protein,
Yeah,
and healthy fats, the foundation of a healthy diet.
exactly. And when it comes to those healthy fats, it's all about finding a balance.
Okay.
Not demonizing any particular type, but making sure we're getting a good mix of saturated, monounsaturated, and polyunsaturated fats.
So instead of getting caught up in the good fat versus bad fat debate, we should focus on getting a variety of fats from whole food sources.
Precisely. And don't forget about quality.
Okay,
Choosing healthy fats over unhealthy fats can make a big difference.
so instead of reaching for processed foods,
Right.
which are often loaded with unhealthy fat,
Right.
we should prioritize those nutrient-rich sources we talked about earlier.
Exactly. Olive oil, avocados, nuts, seeds, fatty fish, those are the all-stars.
And when it comes to cooking methods, opting for like baking, grilling, or roasting over deep frying can help preserve the nutritional value of our foods.
Absolutely.
These are all great tips. It sounds like making healthy choices doesn't have to be complicated.
It doesn't have to be. Small, sustainable changes add up over time.
I love that. It's encouraging to know that we have the power to make a positive impact on our health through the choices we make every day.
Exactly. And remember, it's a journey, not a destination.
Right.
We're all constantly learning and evolving when it comes to our health.
So true. And the more we learn,
Mm-hmm.
the more empowered we become to make choices that support our well-being.
Well said, and that brings us to the end of this segment of our deep dive into the world of fatty acids. But stay tuned because there's still more to explore.
We'll be right back to wrap up our discussion and leave you with some final thoughts on how to apply all this knowledge to your own life. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground in our exploration of fatty acids, from the Omega Balancing Act to the power of nutrigenomics.
Yeah.
It's been a fascinating journey, but I have to admit, it's also a lot to process.
It's true. There is a lot of information out there about fatty acids.
Yeah.
And it can be challenging to know what to make of it all.
Right.
But that's exactly why we're doing this deep dive,
Yeah.
to help you make sense of the science and empower you to make informed choices about your health.
Exactly. I think it's easy to get overwhelmed by all the details and all the conflicting studies.
Right.
Should we be eating more of this fat, less of that one?
Right.
Is there some magic formula we should all be following?
Yeah, it's a common question.
Yeah.
And I understand the desire for clear-cut answers.
Yeah.
But the reality is that nutrition is complex.
Right.
And what works for one person may not work for another.
So how do we move beyond the headlines and those oversimplified, good fat versus bad fat labels?
It starts with understanding that fats are essential for our health.
Okay.
They play vital roles in hormone production, cell function, energy storage,
Yeah.
just to name a few.
Right.
The key is to choose the right types of fats and consume them in appropriate amounts.
So it's about quality and balance, not just quantity.
Exactly.
And you mentioned earlier that a personalized approach can be really helpful,
Uh-huh.
especially as genetic testing becomes more accessible.
Right.
But even without knowing our specific genes, are there some general principles we can all apply?
Absolutely. A great starting point is to simply focus on eating a wide variety of whole, unprocessed foods.
Okay.
Fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, and healthy fats from sources like nuts, seeds, avocados, and olive oil.
Right.
That's the foundation of a healthy diet, regardless of your individual needs.
It sounds like getting back to basics is always a good idea.
Oh.
And when it comes to those healthy fats, it's about making sure we're getting a good mix of the different types.
Right.
Saturated, monounsaturated, and polyunsaturated.
Exactly. We don't want to demonize any particular type of fat,
Right.
but rather aim for a balanced intake from a variety of sources.
Okay.
And as we discussed earlier, paying attention to where those fats come from is equally important.
So instead of reaching for processed foods that are often loaded with unhealthy fats, let's focus on incorporating those nutrient-rich sources we talked about, those all-star foods that provide healthy fats along with a whole host of other beneficial nutrients.
Exactly. And when it comes to cooking, opting for methods like baking, grilling, or roasting over deep frying can help us minimize the intake of unhealthy fats and preserve the nutritional value of our food.
Right.
Small changes like these can make a big difference in the long run.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation.
I'm
I feel like I have a whole new understanding of fatty acids and their impact on our health.
glad to hear that.
But before we wrap things up, I'd love to leave our listeners with a thought-provoking question.
Okay.
Given everything we've learned about the complexity of fatty acid metabolism and the impact of different fats on health, how can you use this knowledge to make more informed decisions about your diet and overall well-being?
That's a great question, and I hope this deep dive has empowered you to think critically about the fats you consume and explore ways to incorporate more of the beneficial ones into your daily life.
It's been a pleasure diving deep into this topic with you. Thanks for sharing your expertise and insights with us today.
It's been my pleasure. Remember, knowledge is power, and the more we learn about how our bodies work, the better equipped we are to make choices that support our health and well-being.
And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into the fascinating world of fatty acids. Thanks for joining us.